Imagine you're heading out of town for a much-needed vacation. You hand your house keys to a trusted neighbor to feed your cat, which, makes total sense.
Right, very normal thing to do.
Exactly. But you forget that on that exact same key ring, you've left the keys to the corporate treasury, the master HR database, and like the root access to your company's server farm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a slightly bigger deal than feeding the cat.
Just a bit. And the crazy thing is, every single day, massive global corporations do exactly this without even realizing it. They basically hand over the keys to the kingdom just to keep the emails flowing.
They really do. And it happens through casually forwarded emails, shared passwords, quick verbal agreements in the hallway. I mean, the intent usually isn't malicious at all.
Right. People are just trying to get their work done.
Exactly. But the result is this completely uncontrolled environment where millions of dollars and, frankly, massive operational risks are just changing hands invisibly.
And that terrifying reality is exactly what brings us to today's deep dive. We are looking at a really fascinating stack of internal blueprints today.
Yeah, some really dense but incredible source material.
Oh, completely. We've got our hands on a comprehensive business requirements document, a functional specification document, and the actual UI screen layouts for an enterprise governance, risk, and compliance platform.
Specifically a module called autoResilience, right?
Yes, autoResilience. And this entire system is engineered to solve one specific monumental problem, which is DUA, or Delegation of Authority. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
I want to clearly define what delegation of authority actually means in this context, because it's way more than just a corporate org chart. DUA is the formal, programmatic allocation of decision-making power to specific roles or individuals.
Right, and it's strictly contained within mathematically defined limits.
Yes, so it's not just about your job title.
Yeah.
It is about your exact verifiable threshold of authority.
Which is, for all intents and purposes, the invisible nervous system of any major organization. I mean, without a rigorous DUA framework, a company isn't really a structured entity.
It's just chaos.
It's a totally chaotic web of individuals making unverified promises with someone else's money and resources. The core belief we have to start with here is that understanding DUA, what it is, why it's used, how it works, is the absolute shortcut to understanding how corporate power actually flows.
And if you are listening to this, you have likely felt the pain of a broken DUA system. Like if you've ever waited, 3 weeks to get a $50 expense report approved just because your manager was at a conference.
Well, we've all been there.
Right. You know exactly what happens when this nervous system breaks down.
Yeah. And to really appreciate the sophisticated automation detailed in these autoResilience documents, we kind of have to examine the absolute mess of the current state that they're replacing.
Oh, the before picture.
Yeah, the before picture is bleak. The background section of the business requirements document paints a picture of total operational fragmentation.
Like dozens of disconnected spreadsheets.
Exactly. Organizations are trying to maintain their authority matrices, which are just the rules dictating who can approve what in outdated spreadsheets.
And a spreadsheet is usually obsolete the second someone hits save. I mean, what really struck me in these documents was the explanation of informal out-of-office coverage.
Oh, that part is wild.
Right. The text notes that when approvers go on vacation, they will frequently just set up auto-forwards on their inbox. Or, incredibly, they literally share their login credentials.
Just handing over the username and password?
Yes. So a colleague can log into the enterprise system and approve purchase orders as them. It's like that pet sitter analogy. You gave them the house key, but you accidentally left the keys to the financial safe and your car on the exact same ring.
And when you look at the psychology behind that, it's rarely a rogue employee trying to commit fraud. It's usually just a manager trying to be efficient.
They just want to pay the vendor.
Exactly. They know a critical vendor needs to be paid, and they don't want to be the bottleneck while they're sitting on a beach somewhere. But by texting their password to a junior employee, they completely obliterate any concept of accountability.
Because the software logs the approval under the manager's name, not the colleague who actually clicked the button.
Right.
So the system is functionally lying.
It is, which is the exact scenario that makes regulatory bodies absolutely lose their patience. The sources point out that modern regulatory frameworks are increasingly demanding demonstrable real-time control evidence.
And they specifically cite SOX, MiFID II, and GDPR.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
So SOX governs strict financial reporting accuracy, GDPR handles data privacy, and MiFID II regulates financial markets. Regulators auditing these areas, they don't want to hear that kind of think only the CFO has the power to authorize $1 million transfer.
They want proof.
They demand cryptographic proof.
And the burden of finding the proof falls squarely on the internal audit teams. I mean, the documents describe auditors spending days, sometimes weeks, trying to reconstruct the history of a single transaction.
Digging through ticketing systems and old emails.
Yeah, searching for old Slack messages, interviewing staff, all just to prove a purchase was valid. It is a wildly expensive, error-prone nightmare. So the solution is building this centralized authority matrix.
And that matrix serves as the core engine of the DUA module. It basically evaluates every single request generated anywhere in the company.
Okay, so how does it actually do that?
Well, to do that effectively, it divides the corporate world into two main categories. You have your financial tasks and your non-financial tasks.
Let's explore the financial side first, since money is usually, the most visible form of corporate power. The appendix of the functional spec gives us a really great look at how these thresholds operate in practice.
Yeah, the procurement examples.
Exactly. So for indirect procurement spend, meaning buying things like office supplies or basic software licenses, anything under $25,000 only needs the approval of a cost center manager.
Pretty standard.
Right. But if that spend crosses the $1 million mark, the system automatically intervenes. It escalates the routing to the CFO, then the CEO, and finally the Audit and Risk Committee.
And handling those financial limits is it's standard for most enterprise resource planning, or ERP, software. What's fascinating here is how the DUA module handles the non-monetary rules.
Because risk isn't always just a dollar amount.
Exactly. A massive corporate liability doesn't always have a dollar sign attached to it immediately. The DUA matrix governs things like ESG commitments, so environmental, social, and governance pledges, as well as really complex hiring decisions and data classification policies.
The IT and HR examples in the source material really bring this to life. Like, if there is a severity 1 or 2 IT production change, which basically means an engineer is altering the core technological infrastructure.
Which is incredibly risky.
Yeah. Huge risk. A standard software system might just let a tech lead approve it. But the DOE matrix mandates approval from both the Chief Information Security Officer and the specific service owner.
Right.
Or look at human resources. If a department wants to offer a severance package that exceeds 6 months of base pay, they can't just process it quietly.
Oh, no.
The system requires sign-off from the Chief HR Officer, the CEO, and the Compensation Committee.
It forces visibility on things that usually fly under the radar.
But I do have to push back a little on the supposed perfection of this matrix, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
You mentioned the $1 million cutoff for executive approval on contracts. If I am, say, a rogue department head, and I desperately want to sign a vendor for $1.2 million without triggering the CFO's oversight, what is stopping me from simply splitting that into 2 $600,000 contracts?
Ah, right.
Like, does a multi-million-dollar compliance system just get defeated by basic division?
That is a phenomenal question. And it highlights a really classic fraud technique known as contract splitting.
Yeah.
A static spreadsheet absolutely gets beaten by basic division. But the autoResilience system counters this by using what the documents call compound thresholds.
Compound thresholds.
Yeah. The matrix doesn't just evaluate the dollar amount of a single request in a vacuum. It utilizes Boolean logic expressions to combine multiple attributes dynamically.
So it's actively reading the broader context of the request, not just looking at a single column of data.
It has to. The rule engine can evaluate a complex logic string. So it might dictate, if the individual spend is greater than $500,000, and D, the aggregate spend for this vendor over the last quarter exceeds $1 million, and D, the vendor's cybersecurity risk score equals high.
Then immediately route to the C-suite.
Exactly. It looks at the holistic risk.
And even if a request does route properly, the functional specification document outlines a mandatory security layer called the 4 Eyes principle.
Yes, that's crucial.
For any transaction that crosses a highly sensitive configured limit, the system strictly requires 2 independent approvers. And they can't just be any 2 people. They must be at the same or a higher level of authority.
Right. It fundamentally neutralizes the ability of a single rogue actor to push through a high-risk decision, because even if they somehow manipulate the risk score, they literally cannot authorize it alone.
Which is a brilliant safeguard against malice. But as we know, the biggest threat to an organization's workflow isn't usually a malicious actor, right?
No, it's usually just the unpredictable nature of human life.
Exactly. People get the flu, they take maternity leave, or their flight gets delayed without Wi-Fi. A rigid Boolean logic system seems like it would just, freeze the entire company the moment a key executive is unreachable.
And that friction is exactly what drives people to share passwords in the first place.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting. The blueprints detail a fascinating auto-detect feature to solve this.
Right, the HR integration.
Yeah. The DUA module doesn't operate in isolation. It constantly talks to the human resources system, the HRMS. It runs a sync every single day to pull official leave data.
So it knows before you even log in.
Right. If HR logs that you're officially on vacation, the DUA system intercepts any approval headed your way. It doesn't let a critical server migration request just rot in your inbox for 2 weeks. It automatically reroutes it to your designated delegate.
However, the system enforces brutal guardrails on how that delegation happens. You cannot simply select your favorite junior analyst to approve things for you.
No handing out blank checks.
Exactly. The DUA module enforces strict monetary caps. You cannot delegate more authority than you actually possess. If your approved limit is $50,000, you cannot magically grant your delegate a $100,000 limit.
You can't give away powers you don't hold.
Precisely. Furthermore, the system actively scans for logical paradoxes, specifically blocking something called circular delegation.
Oh, I loved reading about this in the specs. Circular delegation is basically when person A is out of the office and delegates their authority to person B.
Right.
But person B is also out sick, and they have blindly delegated their authority back to person A. It's like wishing for more wishes from a genie. It's a logical loophole.
It really is.
Yeah.
And if a basic email routing system encounters that scenario, the approval request just bounces back and forth infinitely between the two out-of-office replies until the server crashes.
Oh, man.
But the autoResilience system maps the delegation chain in real time. It identifies the loop before it even happens and explicitly blocks it, forcing the user to select a valid alternative path.
That's so smart.
It also flags exceptions if you try to delegate downward too far, like a vice president attempting to delegate signature authority to an intern.
Okay, so the auto-routing handles the scheduled vacations and the predictable sick days. But what happens when the building is literally on fire?
The true emergencies.
Right. Say there is a catastrophic ransomware attack, and the company needs to instantly shut down a European data center. You simply cannot wait for the CISO, the CEO, and the risk committee to all log in, review the compound thresholds, and click approve.
No, the business would be destroyed while waiting for the bureaucracy to clear.
Exactly.
And that tension, the friction between operational speed and regulatory compliance is probably the hardest thing to balance in corporate governance. To solve this, the auto-resilience system features a specific emergency protocol called break glass mode.
Like smashing the glass on a fire extinguisher.
Exactly like that. Designated executives are issued a specific digital token. In a true, undeniable emergency, they can deploy this token to completely bypass the standard multi-day, multi-person routing logic and execute a decision immediately.
But there has to be a severe catch. Otherwise, an impatient executive would just break the glass every single time they want to skip the line.
Oh, there is a massive catch. The trade-off for that absolute speed is extreme, inescapable visibility. The millisecond that glass is broken and the action is executed, the system concurrently generates a forensic compliance case. The executive's decision must be reviewed, documented, and justified to an oversight committee within 24 hours.
Wow.
And the documents also note that departments are allocated strict exception budgets.
Meaning you only get to play the emergency card a few times a year.
Exactly. And if a department breaches their exception budget, it triggers an automatic, unblockable escalation directly to the board of directors.
That is terrifying.
It serves as a powerful psychological deterrent. You have the power to move fast and save the company, sure, but you know with absolute certainty that you will be standing in front of the board explaining exactly why you did it.
Okay, so we have built an incredible machine here. We've got compound thresholds evaluating holistic risk. We're syncing with HR to handle human unpredictability. And we have a break glass feature for genuine emergencies.
It's very robust.
It really is. But if a company is trusting this automated system with millions of dollars in critical infrastructure, how do they actually prove to external auditors that the system is bulletproof? Like, what stops a system administrator with deep access from just going into the back end and changing the rules to favor themselves?
That brings us to the gotcha engine of the platform, which is the segregation of duties, or
Yep,
SOD, right? The DUA module maintains a massive library of SO rules, and it doesn't just check them when you hit submit. It runs these complex checks in real time. We are talking under 500 milliseconds at every single node of the approval chain.
The specific SO rules listed in the business requirements document really expose how easily a company can be defrauded if they aren't paying attention.
Oh, absolutely.
Take Rule SOD 001. The originator of a request and the approver cannot be the same person. The system classifies this as a critical severity and blocks it instantly.
It sounds incredibly elementary, but before automated DUA systems, this happened constantly. Oh yeah, a department head would submit a massive expense report, and because they had departmental approval rights, they would simply log in and approve their own report.
That is wild. And Rule SOD 002 is even more specific. The person who sets up a new vendor profile in the database cannot be the same person who approves invoice payments to that vendor.
That is the textbook defense against a ghost vendor scheme.
Because otherwise you could just pay yourself.
Exactly. You absolutely cannot allow an employee to create a fake consulting firm in the system and then authorize $100,000 payments to their own shell company. The system physically separates those two capabilities.
Because these SOD rules and compound thresholds are so intricate, rolling out a new corporate policy seems terrifying. I mean, if the CFO wants to change the approval threshold for all European contracts, a single typo in the Boolean logic could accidentally freeze the entire global supply chain.
Which is why the developers built a feature called the Matrix Simulator.
I completely geeked out over the UI layouts for this tool. It is essentially a sandbox environment.
Right, a safe space to test.
Yeah. If an administrator is about to deploy a new global policy, they don't just push it live and pray. They open the simulator and type in a highly specific hypothetical scenario, say a 500,000 euro marketing contract originating from the Berlin office.
Okay.
The engine then visualizes exactly how that request would route through the organization. It highlights if it hits a Four Eyes rule or if it accidentally triggers an obscure SOD violation, all without ever touching live production data.
It operates like a wind tunnel for corporate bureaucracy.
Yes, it prevents catastrophic misconfigurations.
But testing the rules in a simulator isn't what satisfies the regulators. The ultimate defense, the feature that actually fulfills the demands of SOX and GDPR, is the audit trail itself.
Right.
The blueprints detail that every single action within the DUA module is captured in immutable worm storage.
Let's define that real quick. WORM stands for write once, read many.
Right.
You basically cannot overwrite the data and you cannot delete it.
Right. Furthermore, every action is cryptographically chained together using SHA-256 hashes.
And that term, cryptographic hashing, can sound incredibly intimidating, but the concept is actually beautiful. Think of it like weaving a highly intricate mathematical tapestry.
I like that analogy.
Right. Every new action, an approval, a login, a delegation, is a new thread woven into the pattern. And the exact placement and color of that thread is mathematically determined by the thread that came right before it.
That is a brilliant way to visualize the mechanism.
So if a rogue executive realizes they made a huge mistake a month ago and tries to hack the database to pull out that specific thread or alter it to cover their tracks, they can't just change that one isolated spot.
No, they can't.
Pulling that thread unravels the entire tapestry from that point forward. The mathematical pattern of every single subsequent action is instantly broken.
And that broken pattern sets off massive, undeniable alarms. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is how you shift an organization from hoping people follow the rules to mathematically proving that the rules are inescapable.
You literally can't cheat the math.
Exactly. The UI layouts actually show a simple export evidence pack button built specifically for auditors. They click it, and the system generates a ZIP file containing a signed PDF and a JSON manifest.
So instead of spending weeks interviewing people and digging through forwarded emails, the auditor gets a single cryptographic file.
Just handed right to them.
It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt exactly who clicked what at what exact millisecond and what the entire authority matrix looked like at that specific second in time. The proof is absolute.
It fundamentally changes the nature of corporate compliance from reactive archaeology to proactive enforcement.
So what does this all mean? Taking a step back from the SHA-256 hashes, the Boolean logic strings, and the JSON manifest, what this deep dive really reveals is that delegation of authority is about trust at scale.
Trust at scale. I love that phrasing.
It takes the messy, unpredictable reality of human behavior, the vocations, the natural disasters, the conflicts of interest, and wraps it in a mathematical safety net. It allows a massive, sprawling organization to act decisively without accidentally destroying itself in the process.
It brings absolute visibility to the invisible power structures of our daily lives. Which leaves a really fascinating question for anyone listening to this right now.
Oh, I'm ready.
If you evaluate your own daily workflow, how many informal delegations of authority are you engaging in without even realizing it?
Oh, that is such a good point. Think about your own week.
Right. When your manager gives you a quick verbal go ahead in the hallway, or someone drops a casual looks good to me in a Slack channel, what invisible risks are hiding in those informal moments? Because as we've seen today, true authority isn't just about making the decision, it's about having the cryptographic, undeniable proof that you had the right to make it in the first place.
You might think you're just leaving the keys under the mat to feed the cat, but you really never know what else is on that keychain until the auditor shows up. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden nervous system of the corporate world.